Thank you to the sponsor for this video, Keen. Visit trykeen.com/Nadiya to get your first 10 minutes for only $1.99 with one of their trusted advisors. I too had a chance to try Keen when I was approached to have them as a sponsor. I loved my reading, and I only recommend services I trust. Visit trykeen.com/Nadiya to get your first 10 minutes for only $1.99. Hello, fabulous friends, fans, and superstars. Welcome to your horoscope for the week of March 6, 2022. I am your astrologer, Nadiya Shah. Thank you for being here. It is a remarkable astrological week, without a doubt. This is a big week that is set to take place, and in many ways will hearken to what was taking place for us in our lives, going way back to 2020 and key moments there. But more than that, I feel like this week, and especially the very beginning of the week, represents some insight and some foresight as well. Represents a sense of transition that is quite telling, considering where we are in the cosmic theme. I remember way back, I've been talking about the age of Aquarius for decades. Well, for decades? Yeah, for sure, for decades, but certainly for years on this channel, that's for sure. And as I've been talking about the age of Aquarius, especially in the last few years, I've been talking about this degree, 0 degrees of Aquarius, but it isn't just about the very beginning of the sign of Aquarius, but it's also about the very end of the sign of Capricorn. We are now at this key place in our times and in our history where we are getting a chance to see what a transition to a different way of understanding power and who has power. What does that look like? What does that feel like? What might the world be if there is differences or transitions of who has the power? Who now is considered the most powerful, and what happens if that changes? I remember I was talking to you guys way back when Saturn conjuncted Mars at 0 degrees of Aquarius. That was way back March 31st and April 1st of 2020. And I said, watch what happens, because what takes place is going to be very telling as to what is coming up ahead in the immediacy, but more importantly, what is coming up ahead once Pluto starts entering, moving back and forth between Capricorn and Aquarius. And so we are getting mighty close, and a lot of us are feeling it. And we're seeing it on the world stage as well. We're seeing us understanding who has power. We're seeing us wanting to understand what freedom looks like, what it means to be free. And we're also appreciating that freedom means different things, different people. But we're also seeing something about power structure, the individual, but also the larger structures at play that represent who has the power. Now, it's interesting because Pluto in the sign of Capricorn, and there's a reason I'm mentioning this now, and it is related to this week, and how it is that Pluto in particular is in its anaretic degrees, right at the very end and moving into the very end of the sign of Capricorn. And next year, we'll move back and forth between the very end of the sign of Capricorn, but also the very beginning of the sign of Aquarius. And that's related to what's happening right now as we enter this week. It is Venus and Mars that are going to meet at 29 degrees and 55 minutes of Capricorn. So this is the very end degree. Each sign is divided into 30 degrees, and each degree is divided into 60 minutes. So we can see here 29:55 of Capricorn. And then together over the course of Sunday, hand in hand, they will travel together into the sign of Aquarius and will stay together right to 0 degrees and 5 minutes of Aquarius, hand in hand, traveling together before they start to separate. This move, I think, is remarkable. It is phenomenal. It is evoking themes of 2020. But more importantly, it is awakening and foreshadowing our understanding of what is coming up ahead, starting next year in particular. You know, these anaretic degrees of Capricorn are so important, especially considering that this is where the Pluto of the birth chart of the United States is. And so over half of the people who watch me regularly are in the United States. So thank you to friends and fans out there who are watching from the US now. And of course, a lot of conversation in astrological circles, a lot of attention has been spent on the Pluto return of the US. Every country has a birth chart, just like people have a birth chart. Now, what the birth chart of a country is or a city is, has different ways of being calculated. Sometimes it's when it officially becomes a country or officially becomes a city. Sometimes it's when documents are officially signed. And so even that can vary a little bit. And yet, we know that when we look at the birth chart of the United States, and that even that has been calculated a little bit differently, but one of the most widely used birth charts is the one that's called the Sibley chart, which was promoted by one of our great godfathers in astrology, Dane Rudyard. And in this chart, yes, Pluto return of the US, February 22nd, 2022, was when that return was exact, but Pluto's such a slow-moving planet and is slowing down right now, slowing right down to a standstill, will at the end of April officially go retrograde. And so it's just hanging out at these late degrees of Capricorn right about now, basically awakening that one part of the birth chart of the United States. But this degree, right, this idea of the late degrees of Capricorn speaks very symbolically to power itself. And I think about how Pluto has been a planet that's often associated with oil. And so there are, of course, very in-depth astrological explorations of things like, for example, oil and stock markets and whether oil is a good investment, whether gold is a good investment. There are certainly leaders in the field out there. I'm thinking about my friend Ray Merriman, who I've interviewed. Actually, it was like 10 years ago that I interviewed him here on my channel, so you can find that there. And I interviewed other financial astrologers as well. And so there are different ways to understand different things that are valuable and how we understand the economy and who has the power, who has the things that are valuable to a given economy. Pluto is often associated with oil. And the thing that we've really come to understand, I think one thing that has been very evident, even though it was always evident, but especially with Pluto in Capricorn, we have really gotten to see the power of oil and who has it. Think about right now, the most powerful governments in the world are the ones with the oil. Now, think back to the end of March, beginning of April. Saturn met Mars at 0 degrees of Aquarius, at the very beginning of the sign of Aquarius. And what happened at that time? In an instant, oil became worthless. It became worthless. It costs more to keep it than let it go. Now, what happens to world power if overnight the thing that makes a country most powerful ends up not being worth anything at all? Well, it shifts the dynamics of power. But even power, what is it and who is it that is understood as holding power? With Pluto in Capricorn, it's about corporations, it's about the structures that hold really the world together. It's the sign, Capricorn is the sign of skeleton. So it's like the skeleton of society. And it's also an earth sign. And so it has that association with wealth, practical wealth as well. But the energy of Aquarius is very different. The energy of Aquarius is of ideas, of technologies, of the collective, but also the individual. And Pluto in Aquarius very likely is going to speak to individual power, the power of people getting together, but how that can take on all kinds of shades. That can have a dark side to it as well. And so we are seeing some sense of range in this, especially in 2020, but now as well, right now. So in 2020, we had that sense of Saturn meeting Mars. If ever there was an energy that could foreshadow what Pluto and Aquarius could speak to, this really would be it. And again, I've been speaking about this. I'm very passionate about this. I will link to some videos below that I have done, the Decade Ahead Horoscope, When Does the Age of Aquarius Begin video as well. And I have a class coming up at this with the International Academy of Astrology. I will link to that below as well. That very thorough exploration, including sign explorations, will be taking place at that class. But having said that, so we had Saturn meeting Mars. Consider these energies, right? They're rather intense. They're stark. And it gave us a little bit of an understanding of what could be coming up. And so a lot of things changed, of course. Social distancing, for example, happened as well. And the point of the foreshadowing really is to decide if we like the way the energy is going. Ultimately, to contemplate the sky is to cultivate wisdom. That's something that Plato said. That's why we contemplate the sky, according to Plato in his work Timaeus. If it is not to cultivate wisdom, then it is not, to my humble understanding, not worth it. The whole point of astrology is to empower people. And so we get to decide if we like the way in which things are going. You fast forward the 21st of December, we have the Great Conjunction taking place at 0 degrees of Aquarius. And that Great Conjunction gives us hope, takes what could be a possibility, a fantasy, and embodies it. And so lots was happening collectively at that time as well. This happened at the winter solstice, a time when the sun is thought to be reborn as well. So there was this sense, a spirit of rebirth possible for many of us out there. And so now we fast forward. This is one of the first very important meetings that is activating that 0 degree. But the thing is that it isn't just activating 0 degrees with Venus and Mars. Yes, that's part of it. But it's activating 29 of Capricorn as well. And it is this week, and as we're entering this week in particular, that we are very likely going to see in the first days of the week, and as we navigate this time, what that transition looks like. The transition between reaching a pinnacle, a concentration point. The ancients called it a crisis point. It might be a crisis, might not be. I mean, a crisis and how we define that is so highly personal. But some people would say, yeah, right about now, there are things happening in the world that feel pretty intense. Not just in one place of the world, of course, in other places as well. There is intensity there. We're coming to understand power and seeing the effects of power. But the truth is, we've been seeing it. Part of it could be human nature. The world that we've co-created together has extremes to it. But these extremes became very stark with the discovery of Pluto, right around the time of the Second World War. And so now, here we are. And we get to see what happens when you take Mars. Mars is conceptualized as the lower vibration of Pluto, or rather, very often some astrologers have conceptualized Pluto as the higher vibration of Mars. Uranus is the higher vibration of Mercury. Neptune, the higher vibration of Jupiter. This is one way in which astrologers, and especially modern astrologers, as new planets were discovered, sought to conceptualize them, to understand their energies, so that we could use them in modern astrology. And so we have this planet, Mars, which has that correlation to Pluto. And it is meeting Venus. Now, Venus, of course, very different energy. Different energy than Mars and Pluto, certainly. Venus is goddess of love, goddess of allowing, goddess who represents blessing. And the fact that Venus is not just meeting Mars at 0 of Aquarius, but at 29 of Capricorn, I think that this is powerful symbolism for our understanding of how it is that we as humanity have a desire to transition from the intensity and this concentration, this understanding of power, and who has it, towards something that feels more self-motivated, that feels more rooted in the individual rather than structured. And I say this without any kind of judgment. Please know that I hate being controversial. I am not inclined in that direction. There's a lot I could say that I don't, because I want to be inclusive. I care about that deeply within myself. So I care about being inclusive. And I started out this video by saying freedom means different things to different people. Freedom means different things to different people. And we are seeing that laid out. We're seeing that displayed in remarkable ways around the world right now. And it's not to judge anyone's concept of what freedom means to them. But whereas power has been centered in the corporation, the countries, the structures, we are now seeing, and we're getting a little glimpse of what could be possible if that starts to transition. If power starts being rooted in freedom, and if freedom starts being rooted in inner authority, the individual. And what happens when power is not necessarily just about an isolated individual, but considering the collective as well. In our own individual journeys, we are all going through this transition right now as well. We're looking at traditions. We're looking at the way in which hierarchies within our own families, within our own lives, are set into place. The power that we give away, the power that we allow other people to have. And we're looking at where it is that perhaps our own inner authority, which is part of the Aquarian understanding, to trust one's inner authority, and to honor that and to live true to that. Where is it that our own inner authority contradicts the way that things have always been done? The traditions that perhaps we've carried forward, the hierarchies that we've honored, perhaps unconsciously, perhaps because that's the way it's been. But what happens if the hierarchy and the expectations directly conflict with what it is that one's inner authority is guiding one to do? What if your soul knows that you're meant to go in a different direction than what it is that has been planned for you or laid out for you as expected of you, based on tradition, based on your place within the hierarchy of your world, your family, your society? What happens then? Well, that tension and that conflict is part of what this week holds as well. Now, at least when we think back to 2020, more of us were feeling more inspired to go our own way, to think about the future, what the future could hold, what a future would look like if it was more rooted in an understanding of freedom as we understand it. And again, freedom means different things to different people. But in one way or another, most of us, not all of us, we're getting honest with ourselves that in at least one area of life, perhaps, we were constrained or restricted in ways that we no longer desire to be. Depending on where Aquarius falls in your chart. Now, I've been giving these little mini astrology lessons. Lots of you have been enjoying it. Really glad for that. And I'll put up a chart here as an example, a celebrity chart somewhere. You'll see it here. And in this celebrity chart, you'll see that if you look at your chart based on your rising sign, now, and also based on how you calculate the houses, right? To keep it simple, I will use whole sign, just to keep it simple. And again, a celebrity is up to the right. And using whole signs and looking at the chart, well, you can see that the energy of Aquarius falls in a given house, and a house is an area of life. And what that means is when these conjunctions that I've mentioned have taken place in 2020, at the end of March, the middle of December, these conjunctions happened in a given area of your chart. That can also depend on if you're calculating based on what's called a solar chart, using whole signs, putting the sun in the first house. If you don't know birth time, that's a great technique to use. There's that. But now consider what's happening right now, this week, as we begin the week. With Mars and Venus both hand in hand, meeting at the very end of Capricorn and moving into Aquarius, connecting and staying connected right to 0 degrees and 5 minutes of Aquarius. Well, what that suggests is that all of us are getting glimpses into what it means to transition into a new understanding for us and uniquely for us. What it means to consider and to look at the hierarchies and traditions at play in one area of life, and where now perhaps we're ready to move forward, to evolve, to consider another area of life, and where it is now we want to bring that spirit of freedom. We want to be more self-trusting, self-guided, and self-directed as part of exercising our will to move our lives in the direction we desire to go. Another side point to take into consideration, regardless of how it is that you calculate the chart, whatever house method you may use to calculate that, wherever Aquarius is in the chart, meaning whatever house cusp Aquarius falls on, that represents an area of life where you value your freedom, you value being self-directed, you value trusting inner authority, where perhaps you bring an energy of being bohemian. Now, every sign has a spectrum of expression. The higher understanding of Aquarius is being true to yourself, being willing to go your own way, trusting yourself, going inward to understand wisdom and then living true to that. That's the higher vibration. Being willing to stand out if it means living your truth. The lower vibration of Aquarius is chaos. It's the rebel without a clue kind of energy. It's the performance of rebellion, the performance of being different, because actually going within and trusting oneself either is terrifying or is not possible for whatever reason. Maybe the psyche is not ready to do that. And so the lower vibration will get caught in the performance of revolution, the performance of freedom, and what they think that looks like, rather than being self-guided to what that is going to be uniquely for them. And so these themes play out in at least one area of life for all of us out there. If you look at your chart based on your birth time, or if you don't know your birth time, again, using a solar chart, put the sun in the first house. And that is going to show you something about what area of life you are learning to understand that spectrum of energy, and you are learning to raise that energy. Because when you raise the energy, you're approaching the chart consciously. And then your life becomes one based on your own choice, no one else. Your chart and your life becomes one where your empowerment and your consciousness comes to the forefront. And that really is when astrology is at its best, when it's a tool to empower you to make your choices conscious. And so, yes, all of us feeling that sense of transition and feeling a newfound independence as these two planets move into and activate this very sensitive degree, 0 degree of Aquarius, that has proven to be very important, world changing in 2020, that's for sure, and will continue to be. And so we should see powerful events continue to play out on the world stage and in societies among collective groups of people who also want to be themselves. We are likely to see different expression of what freedom means to different people. And this represents a theme that we are going to see play out. We have seen it play out in 2020. We will continue to see that play out, and this week play out very strongly. And next year, it really gets into high gear when that concentration of energy of Pluto starts moving back and forth between the energy of Capricorn and Aquarius. Really a time that'll change so much in the world. Now, the other big energy this week, that has to do with Mercury. Mercury will change signs, and this takes place on Tuesday night. If you're in the Americas, it takes place on Wednesday in the rest of the world. This move of Mercury into the sign of Pisces is notable for a few reasons. One reason it is notable is simply because of the symbolism it represents. Our minds become more imaginative. What we talk about becomes more creative. Wherever Mercury goes, it represents what we're talking about. And Pisces is an energy of fantasy. And some fantasies can be amazing, right? They can represent us idealizing and dreaming of a better world, a more compassionate world, and discussions around compassion can start to rise, which is a good thing. What it means to understand all of us as one, if we're all one, who does that include? And how is it that we can bring that energy of compassion to more people? That becomes part of the discussion now. But of course, another way to understand the energy of fantasy is maybe things not being as clear cut, maybe information that isn't necessarily accurate, maybe information that seems like information, but it's actually weaving a tale. That's where we got to be a little bit conscious with this energy. But there's another reason that this energy matters, and that is because this represents an energy starting to grow in the sign of Pisces. Now, that may surprise you. More energy could grow in Pisces? Yes, because right now we do have the sun there. We're in Pisces season for a little while longer, 2 more weeks. We also have Jupiter in Pisces, of course. So that's expanding Piscean energy, inviting all of us to consider what compassion is going to mean for us around the world, to each other, but also directed towards ourselves as well. And to find blessings there as we are willing to see ourselves and see each other with greater compassion. That's part of what Jupiter represents. But remember, and ultimately, we are building towards the end of April. The end of April. I've spoken about this in the year ahead horoscope, right? I've been talking to you about this as well as we've been going along at different points, because that is a very big deal. The end of April 2022, we are going to have a solar eclipse. And not only is there a solar eclipse hand in hand with Uranus in the sky, but we also have Jupiter and Neptune and Venus all together in the sign of Pisces as well, magnifying Piscean energy. We've got Pluto stationary retrograde at anaretic degree of Capricorn. So there's so much going on. And I'll continue to talk about that energy coming up for sure. It's a year where so much is going to change for so many of us out there, where it may feel like one type of life that maybe we thought we wanted, we realize that it's all illusion, it's all fantasy. And now we're going to choose something more honest. We're going to choose reality. And so much more is part of the energy that we're building towards. I really see that as one of the most important peak moments that is coming up in 2020, April 30th, and the solar eclipse and the events that surround it, celestially speaking. But what we have happening now with Mercury going into Pisces, well, this is paving the way. This is giving us insight into energies that are only going to grow as we move forward from here. Once Venus moves into Pisces. And then we're going to have Mars moving into Pisces as well. So there's lots to look forward to here, lots to talk about in the weeks and months ahead. But right now, and this week, it starts with Mercury. Mercury paving the way for Venus to come along is going to give us insights in the weeks ahead, as Mercury will meet Jupiter, will meet Neptune, will connect that Jupiter-Neptune energy, and what and how that changes our understanding. That's part of Mercury as well. And so pay attention to what you're thinking about. Again, look at your chart. Where's Pisces fall in your chart? Based on your sun sign, where is Pisces in relation to your sun sign? And that's going to tell you something about how it is that that energy is going to be realized in your own life. Now, last week we did have a new moon in Pisces. We also had a conglomerate of energy towards the end of the sign of Capricorn, bringing a whole lot of intensity, bringing an intensity of awareness of these late degrees of Capricorn. And so all of that is very much on the surface now, but also provides us with insight into how this week flows out of last. How this week may, on the one hand, show us a different way, show us a new way, and what that could look like in terms of how power has been understood and where now that might be shifting and the ways in which that could happen. How what freedom means to different people really is likely to show itself to us, especially now, but at least with Venus here in the sign of the collective, in the sign of freedom, in the sign of revolution of Aquarius, at least with Venus here, there's a sense of wanting to understand each other. There's a sense of love as part of the journey. Even with Mars there, activating this energy powerfully so. And of course, we all are being invited to consider our own journey toward what could be more idealistic, how we may imagine that, what place we may find ourselves within creating a more ideal life for ourselves or more world as you are inspired to go. What I love about this week for us, well, look, it is a remarkable week without a doubt. This is a big one. This is one that I've been touching on for a lot of the different signs in the superstar space as well, and saying, hey, this is coming up. This is coming up. Now here we are. We are here. And this is energy we've been feeling, building for a while. But this is a turning point. And whatever happens in your life right now, especially in the first days of this week, will in some way hearken to, speak to what was taking place for us way back at the end of March and mid-December 2020. The connection can be found if we're willing to contemplate it. And ultimately, the connection is our understanding of what freedom means uniquely to us. And how are we going to honor that? How are we going to live true to that? Where is it that we are understanding ourselves as more equal to others than before? And what does that look like for us? Is it a greater sense of wanting mutual respect within relationships? Is it a sense of wanting to be seen as an equal within a corporate structure or an organization? Is it within our families? All of us, in one way or another, are wanting something that feels more balanced, more honoring, more true to some creative and authentic impulse within. And if we trust it, it truly can lead us to great things. That impulse can lead us to our own keys to whatever it is that freedom means uniquely Well, thank you so much for watching. What do you love about this week? Let me know in the comments below. I love reading you guys. And to prove it to you, here are some of my most recent favorite comments. Thank you to everybody who likes, who comments, who subscribes, who shares, who thumbs up. All of it means so much. And of course, if you want to know how all of this very profound energy this week speaks to you and your sign, log on to NadiyaShahSuperstars.com, where you get expanded, exclusive video scopes each and every week for each and every sign for as low as just $3 a month. Would choose your membership rate. Now, higher tiers get you things like all access passes to Synchronicity University events, consultations with me, and so much more. All of this in the Superstar space. I look forward to meeting you there at NadiyaShahSuperstars.com. Link is in the description below. Synchronicity University is thrilled to present the one and only astrology living legend, Michael LUTIN. The one and only Michael LUTIN, world-renowned astrologer, is coming to Synchronicity University, and I couldn't be more proud to have this incredible caliber of teacher at my school, available for as low as just $5 a class, which is really an unheard of rate to learn from Michael LUTIN himself. And Michael LUTIN is going to be teaching a 5-week course, a 5-part course, where he is going to help you to understand how it is that he reads the chart. This is Natal Chart Reading 101 from one of our great masters. Now, Michael LUTIN is one of the very few astrologers in the world that I have, as a professional full-time astrologer, paid to learn from in workshops. And I've taken his workshop. One half-day workshop I took from him was almost $200. And so to learn from a master like this for this low a rate is truly a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. And I hope that you will embrace it, because if ever there was somebody that you really want to learn from, who's going to make you a better astrologer, who's going to reveal things about the chart that make you that much better at reading an astrology chart, it really is this award-winning, world-renowned astrologer, the one and only Michael LUTIN. I couldn't be more grateful. I couldn't be more proud. To me, this really does represent a vision that I had for Synchronicity University, to make it a school where the biggest astrologers in the world would want to teach. And this year, I feel, is where that dream really becomes realized. I mean, I started experiencing it and really understanding it last year, but this year, to offer these in-depth courses with such brilliant astrologers is really so very special to me and so near and dear to my heart. And really, I feel contributing something very positive by making astrology classes like this accessible to more people than ever before. Like I said, who gets to learn from Michael LUTIN for as low as $5 a class? That is unheard of. But here we are. And here's your opportunity to learn from truly one of our living legends in the field. Horoscope, astrology chart, natal chart reading 101. This is what Michael LUTIN is going to be teaching you. He's going to be giving you his inside secrets on understanding the chart, understanding transits and what's coming up, and so much more. So learn more about his course by going to synchronicityuniversity.com, and you can sign up there only until the end of March. So you've only got less than 4 weeks to sign up for his course, because it starts in April. So there's a very limited time. This is the time to sign up for the one and only Michael LUTIN at synchronicityuniversity.com. Link is in the description below. And single classes are now available for classes that are happening right now as we speak. Classes by me, classes by the one and only Cameron Allen, who is in full process of teaching his medical astrology holistic approach class that students are absolutely loving. And of course, the March 2022 speaker series is in full effect right now as we speak as well. Incredible teachers on offer, and you can get those single classes now by visiting synchronicityuniversity.com. Link is in the description below. And keep an eye out, because this week, this weekend, and leading into this week, boy, are there going to be very big announcements coming up, even more classes coming up this spring, and really right now securing and finalizing incredible teachers this summer as well. Synchronicity University is going to be lit as part of your astro learning journey. Thank you. Thank you for your love and support, and also seeing so much value in these incredible teachers who come to Synchronicity University and make their classes so accessible to you guys. Thank you for that, for your support as a student, to the teachers as well, to all of you. And so, yes, keep an eye out. Incredible classes to be announced in the days ahead. Pluto in Aquarius, from earth to air, and how this changes everything. Well, that is my talk coming up with the International Academy of Astrology. So they're having a big event. You can sign up for just my class. You can sign up for a package to be attending all of the incredible events with brilliant astrologers as part of their Jubilee event. And that is taking place in just 2 weeks, 2 weeks' time. Now, this class is going to be different than previous times that I have taught Pluto in Aquarius. I've been meditating on this. I've been contemplating this very deeply. And so it truly is so exciting. And yes, I hope that you will join us. There is more information and links in the description below. With this class, I will be looking at the collective, of course. Not going to delve too much into 2020 and those major conjunctions that happened, only because I've spoken about them so much. I really want to focus that class time on new information, on helping us to understand what could be coming up ahead, but also looking at each and every sign and what Pluto moving into Aquarius could mean for you. But again, pay attention to your chart. That's going to give you some glimpses into how Aquarian energy is awakening for you now and has been. But at the same time, Pluto is its own energy. It is his own thing. And so there's a lot to look forward to and a lot to discuss in this class as well. Thank you to the International Academy of Astrology for hosting this class, for inviting me to speak. And join us. Link is in the description below. And thank you. I hope I covered everything I needed to for this week. I appreciate you guys so very much. Thank you for your support, for your love, all of it, for your trust, and for seeing the value of the weekly video scopes, seeing the value of the superstar space as well. Thank you again for watching, and it'll be a great week. Enjoy. Welcome to the exciting rebirth of Superstar, featuring choose your membership rate as low as just $3 a month. At Superstar, you get expanded, exclusive video scopes each and every week, unlimited access to special horoscopes, class passes for Synchronicity University, consultations with me, and so much more. All of this in the Superstar space. I look forward to meeting you there.